Welcome to the Pencil Bob channel. I hope you enjoy my stories. Please like and subscribe, and hit that notification icon so you never miss out. Now on with the stories.
Karen had always been a force of nature in the neighborhood, but not in the way anyone would want. From the moment she moved into her perfectly manicured house on Maple Street, she seemed determined to impose her will on everyone around her. Her presence was like a dark cloud, casting a shadow over what was once a peaceful community. Karen's reign of terror began subtly, with small acts of pettiness that gradually escalated into full-blown hostility. Her first target was the family next door, who had 2 lively dogs. Karen believed that dogs should be seen and not heard, and their barking was an affront to her sense of order. One evening, under the cover of darkness, she tossed poisoned meat over the fence, an act of cruelty that nearly resulted in tragedy. The family was devastated, and the neighborhood was left in shock. Karen's disdain wasn't limited to animals. She had little patience for the joyful sounds of children at play. When a group of neighborhood kids set up a lemonade stand at the corner, hoping to earn a little pocket money and enjoy the summer sun, Karen saw only chaos. She called the police, complaining about the traffic and noise. The sight of the children being questioned by officers was heartbreaking, and the community began to see Karen for what she truly was, a menace. Her obsession with silence was relentless. On a sunny Saturday afternoon, a neighbor decided to mow his lawn, a perfectly normal activity, yet Karen was incensed. She called the police to lodge a noise complaint, demanding quiet on the weekends. Her expectations were unreasonable, but she seemed oblivious to the absurdity of her demands. Karen's entitlement knew no bounds. One day she pounded on a neighbor's door, insisting they move their car from their own driveway because it obstructed her view. The neighbor, bewildered by the audacity, refused, leaving Karen fuming. Her tantrums became legendary, each more outrageous than the last. Her list of grievances grew longer. During a family barbecue, she sprayed water over the fence, claiming the smoke was bothering her. The family was left drenched, their event ruined. Another time, she destroyed a neighbor's meticulously tended garden, calling it an eyesore. The garden, a source of pride and joy, was left in ruins, the flowers trampled and the plants uprooted. In a particularly bizarre incident, Karen chased a neighbor and their dog down the street with a pitchfork, accusing them of trespassing. Her actions were becoming increasingly erratic and the neighborhood was on edge. When a new family moved into the neighborhood, Karen's hostility reached new heights. From the outset, she made it clear they were not welcome. She knocked on their door, demanding they leave, her face twisted with anger. The family, stunned by her aggression, slammed the door in her face, hoping she would leave them alone. Undeterred, Karen attempted to rally the other residents to sign a petition to force the newcomers out. Most refused, but a few signed just to get rid of her. Her campaign of intimidation was relentless, but the new family stood their ground. Frustrated by her inability to drive them away, Karen decided to take matters into her own hands. One sweltering afternoon, she crept up to their house, a can of gasoline in hand. Her plan was as reckless as it was malicious. She would set their house on fire, forcing them to flee. The fire started quickly, flames licking up the side of the house, but her actions did not go unnoticed. A vigilant neighbor spotted the smoke and immediately called 911. Grabbing his garden hose, he rushed to the scene, determined to contain the blaze. As the fire spread, more neighbors joined in, armed with hoses and buckets of water. Karen, realizing her plan was failing, tried to stop them, shouting and waving her arms. But the community, united against her, ignored her protests. The sound of sirens filled the air as police and fire trucks arrived. The firefighters quickly doused the flames, preventing a disaster. Karen was arrested on the spot, her protests falling on deaf ears. The neighborhood watched as she was led away, a mixture of relief and disbelief on their faces. In the courtroom, Karen's demeanor was as defiant as ever. She stood before the judge, her posture rigid and her chin held high, exuding an air of self-righteousness. Her expression was a mix of indignation and disbelief, as if she couldn't comprehend why she was being held accountable for her actions. Her eyes darted around the room, meeting the gaze of the jury and the spectators with a challenging glare, as though daring them to question her motives. When it came time to explain her reasoning for the arson, Karen's words were as shocking as the act itself. She spoke with an unsettling calmness, claiming that the new neighbors had refused to move despite her repeated demands. In her mind, this left her with no choice but to burn them out, a phrase she uttered with chilling nonchalance. The courtroom fell into a heavy silence, the sheer brazenness of her justification leaving everyone stunned. The judge, visibly taken aback, paused for a moment, allowing the weight of Karen's words to settle over the room. The jurors exchanged incredulous glances, while the audience shifted uncomfortably in their seats, grappling with the reality of what they had just heard. The prosecution laid out a comprehensive case against her, meticulously presenting a timeline of events that highlighted the numerous complaints and incidents that had plagued the neighborhood since Karen's arrival. The prosecutor, speaking with measured confidence, detailed each grievance with precision, from the poisoned meat thrown over fences to the relentless noise complaints and the bizarre demands she made of her neighbors. Each incident was supported by testimonies and evidence, painting a vivid picture of a community living under siege. Witnesses took the stand one by one, their testimonies revealing the extent of Karen's erratic behavior. They described encounters with her that ranged from unsettling to downright frightening, illustrating a pattern of intimidation and harassment. Each account added another layer to the portrayal of a woman who believed she was above the law, acting with impunity and without regard for the consequences of her actions. Her defense team attempted to counter these claims by arguing that Karen was misunderstood, suggesting that her actions were merely the result of miscommunication and a desire for order. However, the evidence presented was overwhelming. Photographs, video footage, and written complaints all corroborated the witnesses' stories, leaving little room for doubt. The defense's argument seemed flimsy in comparison, unable to withstand the weight of the prosecution's well-constructed case. The judge and jury listened intently, their expressions reflecting the gravity of the situation as they absorbed the full scope of Karen's impact on the neighborhood. The judge, clearly unimpressed by Karen's lack of remorse, delivered a scathing rebuke. She was sentenced to many years in prison, her actions deemed not only reckless but indicative of a dangerous mindset. As she was led away in handcuffs, Karen remained unrepentant, convinced she had done nothing wrong. The neighborhood, once a place of tension and fear, slowly began to heal, united in their relief that the nightmare was finally over. Karen had learned nothing but justice had been served, and the community could finally breathe easy. Karen stormed into the store with a sense of purpose, her eyes scanning the aisles for the candles she had seen in the advertisement. The ad had promised an unbeatable deal, and she was determined to take advantage of it. Her footsteps were quick and decisive, echoing her confidence that she was about to make an excellent purchase. As she navigated through the bustling store, she clutched her purse tightly, the crumpled ad peeking out as a constant reminder of the bargain she was about to secure. The fluorescent lights overhead cast a bright glow on the neatly arranged shelves, but Karen's focus was singular, her gaze darting from one aisle sign to the next. The scent of fresh produce and baked goods wafted through the air, but Karen was unfazed by the distractions, her mind set solely on finding the candle section. Her heart raced with anticipation, the thrill of a successful shopping trip fueling her determination. She imagined the rows of colorful candles waiting for her, each one a potential centerpiece for her home, a testament to her savvy shopping skills. As she turned a corner, her eyes finally landed on the display she had been searching for. A sense of triumph surged through her as she approached the shelves lined with candles of various shapes and sizes. The flickering promise of discounted prices danced in her mind, and she felt a sense of satisfaction knowing she was about to outsmart the system and secure a fantastic deal. Reaching the candle section, Karen picked up a few of the scented varieties, inhaling deeply as the fragrances of lavender, vanilla, and sandalwood mingled in the air. She imagined the serene ambiance they would create in her living room, a perfect setting for her upcoming dinner party. With a satisfied nod, she headed to the checkout counter, her mind already planning the layout of her table. The cashier greeted her with a polite smile, scanning the candles and announcing the total. Karen's brow furrowed as she heard the amount. The price was much higher than she had anticipated, and a wave of disbelief washed over her. Her mind raced as she quickly calculated the discrepancy, convinced there must have been a mistake. Refusing to accept the unexpected turn of events, she reached into her purse with determination, fingers brushing past her wallet and keys, until she found the crumpled ad. With a triumphant flourish, she thrust the ad towards the cashier, her eyes gleaming with a mix of confidence and indignation. "These are supposed to be on sale," she declared, her voice tinged with a righteous insistence that brooked no argument. She was certain that the ad, now slightly worn from being handled so often, held the key to rectifying the situation. Her expectation was clear. The cashier would see the error and adjust the price accordingly, validating Karen's belief in her shopping prowess. Her posture straightened, and she braced herself for what she assumed would be a swift resolution in her favor. The cashier examined the ad, her expression shifting from confusion to realization. "I'm sorry, ma'am," she began, "but this ad is expired and it's not even from our store." Karen's eyes narrowed, her patience wearing thin. "That can't be right," she insisted, her voice rising. "I demand the discount. It's not my fault if the ad is expired. I should still get the deal." The cashier maintained her composure, trying to explain the store's policy, but Karen was having none of it. Her voice grew louder, drawing the attention of other shoppers who began to glance over, curious about the commotion. Karen's face flushed with a mix of anger and embarrassment, but she was too deep into her argument to back down now. As the scene unfolded, Karen's nephew, who had accompanied her to help with the shopping, approached the counter. He had been browsing nearby and heard the escalating argument. Sensing the situation was spiraling out of control, he gently placed a hand on Karen's shoulder, trying to calm her down. "Aunt Karen," he said softly, "maybe we should just let this go. It's just a few candles." Karen turned to him, her expression a mix of frustration and disbelief. "It's the principle of the matter," she snapped, unwilling to concede. "They should honor the ad." Her nephew sighed, recognizing the futility of the situation. He knew his aunt well enough to understand that once she set her mind on something, it was nearly impossible to change her course. But he also knew that continuing this argument would only lead to further embarrassment. Despite his attempts to defuse the situation, Karen continued her tirade, her voice echoing through the store. The manager, alerted by the commotion, approached to see what could be done to resolve the issue. After a brief discussion with the cashier, the manager confirmed that the ad was indeed expired and from a different store, reiterating that they could not offer the discount. Karen's nephew tried once more to intervene, gently urging her to accept the situation and move on. But Karen, steadfast in her belief that she was in the right, refused to back down. Her insistence on the discount had now become a matter of pride, and she was unwilling to admit defeat. The other shoppers, who had initially watched with mild interest, began to lose patience. Some whispered to each other, while others shook their heads, disapproving of Karen's behavior. The atmosphere in the store grew tense, the air thick with the discomfort of a public confrontation. Finally, realizing that she was not going to get her way, Karen huffed in frustration, snatching the candles off the counter. She muttered under her breath about poor customer service and stormed out of the store, her nephew trailing behind her, his expression a mix of embarrassment and relief that the ordeal was over. As they walked to the car, Karen continued to vent her frustrations, convinced that she had been wronged. Her nephew listened patiently, knowing that arguing with her would be pointless. He hoped that in time she might reflect on the incident and see it from a different perspective. But for now it was clear that Karen had learned nothing from the experience. The drive home was filled with Karen's monologue about the injustice she had faced, her nephew nodding occasionally, offering placating responses. He knew that this incident would become one of those stories Karen would recount at family gatherings, each retelling becoming more exaggerated and dramatic. In the days that followed, Karen remained steadfast in her belief that she had been treated unfairly. She shared her story with friends and family, each time emphasizing her conviction that the store should have honored the ad. Her friends, familiar with Karen's stubborn nature, listened with varying degrees of sympathy and amusement. Despite the negative outcome, Karen remained undeterred in her approach to such situations. She continued to believe that standing her ground was the right thing to do, even if it meant facing public embarrassment. Her nephew, meanwhile, hoped that future shopping trips would be less eventful, though he knew better than to expect any change in Karen's behavior. In the end, the expired ad incident became just another chapter in Karen's life, a reflection of her unwavering belief in her own righteousness. While others might have learned a lesson in humility or acceptance, Karen remained resolute, convinced that she had done nothing wrong.
I would like to thank you for watching the video to the end. To encourage us to make more videos, please like, subscribe, comment, as well as share. Check out this other video if you haven't already.